Hey, awesome people, welcome to this week's episode of So Addicts. Hi guys, welcome to this week's tutorial. Today we are learning how to make a wrap dress. Now this is a highly requested video and I've finally gotten around to making a tutorial for you guys. So I really hope you guys enjoy this. I love the way my dress came out. I actually wore it to an event and got so many compliments. I was really happy with the results. So I really hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. If you're new to my channel, please make sure to hit the red subscribe button so you can see more awesome videos from me, and let's get started.
Getting started with the materials we need, you want to get 1.5 yards of knit fabric. This is going to help us avoid making darts. Then you also need 1 thread spool. To begin the pattern making process, you want to get a t-shirt you like. So this is going to serve as the base of our pattern. Now you want to fold this t-shirt basically in half or right under a bust. Then you want to make sure to fold your sleeves in. So you want to make sure to fold your sleeves in, forming the shape of that sleeve seam. Now we're going to fold our t-shirt in half. After folding, you can put in some pins just so your t-shirt stays nicely in place. This is what we're going to use to construct our back pattern. To begin the back process, you want to put your fabric on fold. Then we're going to grab our t-shirt and place the straight edge of our t-shirt on the straight edge of our fold fabric. Now we're going to draft the rest of our dress. To draft the rest of our dress, we want to identify our waist position. So I'm measuring right from my armhole all the way down my waist. My armhole to my waist is about 9 inches. So I'm measuring from the armhole there 9 inches. Now from that 9-inch point, you want to measure down to your highest hip point. Now the highest hip point measurement is about 7 to 9 inches. So I measured from that 9-inch point 7 inches down. Now this is where our highest hip point is going to be. From there, we take our hip measurement and divide it by 4. Now my hip measurement was 10.25, so I'm just placing that pin there for the hip measurement. Now we're going to attach our hip rise point to our waist, just like this. Now we're just going to extend from the hip point all the way down to create the hem of our dress. After extending your hip point all the way down, now we're going to measure how long we want our dress to be. So I made mine from my shoulder all the way down about 32 inches. So I have that 32 inches point marked at the bottom, and now we're just going to cut out our dress. While cutting out, you want to also make sure to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance all around your dress. After cutting out the back, it should look something like this. Now we're going to go ahead and cut out the front. To cut out the front, you want to fold one side of your back to make a straight line across that edge. So as you can see, I'm just pinning mine inside, creating a straight edge on one side of my back. Now we're going to place it on our fabric in the same direction. So we're placing it open, laying it flat on our fabric, and this is what we're going to use to cut out the front. After pinning down the back, now we're going to cut around it. So I'm cutting my hem here, as you guys can see, and now we're going to cut the side of the straight edge up until our bust point, which is about 4 to 5 inches away from the armhole. Now I'm putting a pin here at this top of my shoulder, and now we're actually going to be cutting a nice curve connecting that point from our bust point. So I'm cutting up into the back, a nice curve up all the way to our shoulder. And from there, we're going to cut around the rest of our back. After cutting it out, it should look something like this. From then on, we're also going to repeat the process and cut out our front twice. So you just want to place this on your fabric and cut it out once more. So after cutting that out, now we have our 2 fronts and our full back. Now we're going to go ahead and attach our front and back together. So right sides to right sides, we are going to be sewing down the side seams and also the shoulder. To sew our knit down, we will be using a zigzag stitch. If you don't have a zigzag stitch, you can also use a straight machine. You just have to make sure that you're using an elastic thread. This allows the knit to stay nice and loose and also not pop when you wear it. So now we're also going to be sewing down the sides. After sewing it down, it should look like this. Now we're going to be flipping over this side of our front pattern and placing the other front pattern on the side of our back. Now before we sew this down, we're also going to be flipping back over this side of our front, and we just want to identify this bust point. And to do that, I'm just placing a pin there to identify that bust point. Now we're also going to be creating a hole about 3/4 wide. So we're going to be stitching from the top to the bottom and leaving that hole. So I just stitched this down, as you guys can see, and I have that 3/4 hole open, and I've also sewn my shoulders. Now we're going to be moving on to finishing the edge of our front. So you want to finish this edge by just folding over the fabric twice. Folding it over twice, and then we're just going to top stitch this on the sewing machine. I do advise for you to press this before you actually sew it. It makes sewing it so much easier. So you want to make sure to do this for both front edges. After sewing it down, it should look something like this, nice and clean. So at this point of the process, I do encourage you to try your dress on and identify any areas that may need adjustments. Now we're going to move on to prepping our sleeve. So you want to put your fabric on fold again, and then you want to also grab your shirt, and we're going to be placing this straight edge on this edge of our fold. So I'm just applying some pins, making sure the sleeve stays nicely in place. And then we're just going to go ahead and trace out our sleeve pattern. So I'm tracing the curves of my sleeve seam as well. So you can definitely make your sleeves longer or shorter, or whichever length you prefer. After tracing it out, then we're going to cut the sleeve pattern out with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you want to make sure to cut out 2 sleeves. This is going to be for your left and right. So to attach the sleeves, we are going to get started by folding the sleeves right sides to right sides and sewing down this straight edge. Make sure to repeat for the other side as well. After sewing it down, it should look like this. Now we're going to attach our sleeves to our bodice. So I'm starting out there at the bottom seams, making sure to attach both seams together. And now we're also going to be attaching the top of our sleeve to the top shoulder. So once you've attached these 2 points, then you can just walk your sleeves around your bodice. Make sure to do the same for the other side as well. After attaching the sleeves, it should look like this. I also went ahead and finished the bottom of my sleeves by folding over twice and top stitching, just like we did for the front edge. And now for our bottoms. If you are not adding the optional gathered piece at the bottom, you can just fold over your edge twice and top stitch that. But if you are adding the optional piece, you want to make sure to cut out 2 pattern pieces that are 4 inches wide and about 30 to 35 inches long. You can make them as long as you want, but I ran out of fabric, so I only had 30 inches. But it still worked. So you want to make sure to sew this down as well. After sewing it down, now we're going to finish the edges of our piece. So you want to make sure to fold one edge over twice, and we're also going to be folding the bottom edge over twice as well. So we're going to be top stitching from this corner all across the bottom edge, all the way to the other side of the fabric. So after top stitching, it should look like this. Now we're going to run our big basting gathering stitches across the edge of our piece. So as you can see, I'm running our basting stitch set at about 4.5 or 5 and running it across from one edge to the other. Now to gather this, I'm cutting the thread, and you also want to pick one set of thread, and this is what you're going to use to distribute or gather the fabric. So after gathering it to a desirable length, now we're going to place it at the bottom of our dress. So the edge here where I have my seam, I'm going to be placing it in the middle of my back, And now I'm just going to be walking the rest of my piece from one edge to the other. So as you're walking this piece in, you want to make sure that your gathers stay nicely and intact, and they're also evenly distributed from one edge to the other. After sewing it down, it should look like this. Make sure to press at every step of the way. Now we're going to be finishing up the edges of our neckline. Now to finish up the edges of our neckline, you want to make sure to measure the length of your actual neckline. So I'm placing my tape measure around my neckline from one point all around to the other side. And mine came out to be about 44.5 inches. Now we're going to cut a piece of fabric that's about 2.5 inches wide and 44.5 inches plus 60 inches in length. So about 104 inches and 2.5 inches wide. Now we're going to attach this piece to our main fabric. So I'm placing my middle seam here of my piece and placing it at the center back. So I'm pinning that down, and now you want to make sure to walk your strip all around your front and back neckline. So after sewing it down, it should look like this. So I did go ahead and actually trim some of that extra fabric away just to reduce the bulk at the neckline. But now we're going to be folding over our edge twice. So we're folding over a 1/2 inch, and then we're going to be using that to cover up the seams. So we fold over one edge a 1/2 inch and then fold it over to cover up the seams. So you want to make sure to walk this process all across your neckline. And now for our straps and ties, we are just going to fold both sides over a 1/2 inch and then top stitch this. So you want to walk this process all throughout the ties. When you get to the edge of the ties, we're going to be folding over that edge and then repeating the same process, folding over twice and then top stitching. This is how we're going to finish the edge of our straps. So you want to make sure to fold over all the edges and top stitch from one side all across the other side. After sewing it down, it should look like this. You are pretty much complete with your dress. And now to tie it, you just want to make sure to put in this side through the hole that we created earlier. So you're going to pass one of your ties through that hole. And this is going to serve as a wraparound throughout your bust area. So we're just going to pass that from one side all the way to the other side. And then you can tie your ties however direction or shape you like. And once you're done with this process, your wrap dress is pretty much ready to wear.
At the end of this tutorial, I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I just want to take this moment to thank every single one of you that have been watching my videos so far. I really appreciate and thank each and every one of you. If you do make this tutorial, please tag me in your photos on Instagram at DamiAdenikeX. And if you like this tutorial, please give this video a big thumbs up. If you have any questions or suggestions, or you just want to say hi, scroll down and leave me a couple of words in the comment sections. I'm definitely going to be reading those as well. Now, one last thing, if you haven't already, please make sure to scroll down and hit the red subscribe button to be part of the Sew Addicts family. And I hope to catch you awesome Sew Addicts next week.